Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, CSL Delaware. The theme for March 2021 is open to possibilities. The topic for today is release and let God. Ernest Holmes wrote in the Science of Mind text, ignorance stays with us until the day of enlightenment, until our vision toward the spirit broadens and casts out the image of a no longer useful littleness. The will should hold it in place until the creative genius of the inner life transforms the image of limitation and transmutes it into liberty under law. Eugene B. Holden, fear keeps us hanging on to what doesn't work in our lives. It also keeps us from surrendering to our good. Surrender has two sides. We surrender all that does not serve us. Then we surrender to our greatest good. Let us reflect on this affirmation of truth as we say it together. The more I release, the more good I experience. I now turn it back over to Reverend Kathleen.
Marcy, those are some really powerful quotes that you just read, and I really appreciate your very attuned way of sharing that with us. So, open to possibilities. This entire month is devoted to the spiritual practice of visioning. It's one of the three pillars of science of mind, the spiritual teachings that we offer here at the spiritual community. And this week, the focus is on releasing and letting God. Actually, the D was missing on those slides. It's letting go and it's release and let God. And we want to focus on this idea of not only the release, but the letting God part. And so let's take that with us as I just share with you. Let's just go back to the very core and center of ultimate reality, which is that there is one ultimate visionary, a field of all potentiality and all possibility, one universal creative mind, one source, and we are of it. We are created in its likeness and image. Therefore, we are visionaries by nature. We are born as visionaries. So if somebody says, well, they're a visionary, but I'm not a visionary, that's not the truth. It's time for us to own up to who we are. We are natural visionaries. And that means we are fully connected to the one universal mind of God, the ultimate visionary. We are inlets and outlets of the flow of infinite possibilities, in other words, new possibilities, new solutions, new ideas that are directly from the mind of the one source, the one spirit, the one God. And so we are possibilitarians. That's what we call ourselves in New Thought. We are possibilitarians, which keeps us focused on this truth about ourselves. And because of our divine nature, we have a superpower. It's the ability to catch these new possibilities, these new ideas, and to think them and speak them into reality, to actually become them, these new ideas. And that's very exciting. So I want you to own your superpower. It's a very important thing. So we are possibilitarians who have a great superpower of bringing the new into expression. Our friend Steve Behrman tells us this about this thing called visioning. He said, the most powerful tool on the planet today is television. I tell you a vision and you tell me a vision. So with that in mind, visioning has different aspects to it. It's catching the highest idea of my life. Also, though, today, and this is what we're focused on, is what is it that I must release in order to be a vibrational match, to actually become the vision. Releasing is crucial. And so if nothing else, when you walk away from this message today, I want you to truly get the importance and the value of the inner work of releasing, because what it does essentially is to unveil the divine magnificence that we are. It's like taking off an old set of garments and putting them aside and donning the truth of who we are, the true garments that are inside of those old garments. So I'm going to be talking about the value of release and let God, Spirit's highest idea, not the ego's idea. Steps in releasing using the visioning process. I'm going to be talking about releasing in order to forgive, and releasing is making room for the vision. So the value of release. So many of you in our community know the song, I release and I let go, I let spirit run my life, and it goes on from there. That particular statement, I release and I let go, I let spirit run my life, is really what we're focused on here today. Michael Beckwith says that 100% of spiritual growth is about releasing. 100% is about releasing and letting go of ideas, beliefs, and attachments that no longer serve and which stand in the way of Spirit's highest vision for our lives. And so it's important to remember when we say we let go and we let Spirit, to remember that we are one with, or we are one of Spirit. The Spirit within is our true identity. We have somehow gotten, often many of us, the idea that this these thoughts, this body or whatever is who we are, and that's it. And so it's important for us to remember our true identity is unlimited Spirit. So when we say Spirit's highest idea of our life, we're talking about our true identity's highest idea of our life. Last week, I shared how back in 2019, after our leadership, our 18 leaders had done visioning for our next facility, using the visioning process, catching the highest vision, God's highest vision for our next spiritual home, that I had to release my attachment to what I thought that building was going to be. I was attached initially to, it's something that we had to own. That it was time for us to own our own building. I had to let go of that attachment. And then we started looking for rental properties. And I had to let go of the attachment that it was going to be something that we rented 24/7. And after I really let go of all of those things, then it became clear, with the help of many of you in the community, that the Center for Creative Arts was a really good option. And here's the really cool thing is, after letting go of all the attachment to what I thought I wanted, what I thought was in the vision, because I was seeing 24/7 in the vision too, is that Spirit had a higher idea for us. And that was the Center for Creative Arts. And it turned out that it was not only the blessing of blessings in this time of COVID, because we moved in just, 6 or 7 weeks before. We took the month of January just to prepare the space and do all the renovations, and then we moved in February, and by mid-March we had to shut down in-person services and move to Zoom. So that was the blessing of blessings, because we were not charged for eight of those months rent. And now, even now, when we made our new agreement, we are paying $200 a month, because our stuff is there, until we decide that it's safe and wise for us to move back into meeting in person. A blessing of blessings. Think if we had owned our own place and were paying a mortgage, or if we were in a rental property with a huge rent. So here's the beauty of it all, is not only was it a blessing of blessings in that way, but it was also a better fit. CC Arts was a better fit to the vision. If you went down all of the common themes and qualities, it fits so much better than all those other properties that we looked at. So letting go, releasing attachment, makes room for the new thing, the vision itself to come into manifestation. That's the value of release and letting God have the last say, the spirit within us. The next point, spirit's highest idea, not ego's idea. Spiritual growth is not about getting stuff. It just isn't. Spiritual growth is about letting go of the blocks that get in the way of expressing our divinity. In other words, get in the way of our spiritual growth, which means gets in the way of our ability to use that creative superpower that is within us. So through visioning, we not only begin to see, feel, and hear spirit's highest idea of our life, we also begin to see, feel, and hear spirit's highest vision of what we must release. Yeah, that's it. It's really very clear at this point. Truly effective releasing, therefore, is not based on the ego's choice of what to release. It's spirit's highest idea of what must be released. And that's why it is really important to drop into a deep state of meditation, to drop down below the conditioned mind, which is the field of what we call the ego. It's the limited idea of who we are, into the field of all possibility and all potentiality, which meditation helps us to do, the silence helps us to do, so that we can catch spirit's highest idea of what we must release. So our job then is to ask the spirit within and to listen. The steps in releasing using the visioning process. Our science of mind symbol, for those of you who know it very well, and for those of you who are brand new, the science of mind symbol that is actually in that ornament that many of you have is a reminder of the creative process and how it works. It's a reminder of our part, which is to either ask the question or plant the new idea. And the center part, that's the top part, the center part is the universal law, and which just automatically reacts or responds, responds to that question or that thought. And the law brings it into manifestation. The law is the creative medium that surrounds us, that fills us. We can think of it as all of the energy, the energy that has not come into form and experience all around us, that's ready and available. And the symbol therefore stands for this particular statement: where your attention goes, energy flows, and manifestation follows. So with that in mind, then when we ask a question and when we keep our attention on the question, what is spirit's highest vision for what needs to be released. If you've been visioning for a while, but you really haven't been doing the inner work of releasing, this is a really good one to focus on. What is spirit's highest vision of what needs to be released? And then we sit in the silence, we listen deeply and reverently. And that means long enough for us to receive the visionary insight from universal mind of what needs to be released. And this doesn't mean a one-time thing, it might be, but generally, the practice of visioning, the spiritual practice of visioning, is something that we do on an ongoing basis because there is a continued flow of inspiration that comes through daily. So the more we make ourselves available to this thing called visioning, the more we're able to continue to bring more and more of that divinity, divine expression into our lives, and therefore more and more good into our lives. So after the be still and sit in the silence and listen part, then the final step is to follow spirit's guidance, is to follow the guidance. If you hear that it's that you're supposed to release impatience, let's say, then you know that that's your inner work to do. And so it's important to follow up and put it into your prayer work, to truly relax, release, and let go of what's blocking the good. And I loved what you did, Marianne, with, doing something physical to tell your body temple that you're releasing, because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what you're thinking and what's real in the moment. So if you're doing that, if you're thinking release and you're using your hands, you're supporting that process. Reverend Michael Beckwith tells a story about the early days in Agape, when he and those who were visioning for Agape gathered together in his living room to do the visioning process. And he said one particular day he had an insight and he guided them into a deep state of meditation, the visioning process, asking them to listen reverently to what must we release in order for spirit's highest vision of Agape to manifest. And so what spirit revealed to them was this, in essence, that they must release their attachment to talking and socializing only with their friends during the service, and that they must therefore be more welcoming to new people as they come in. In other words, they must release the fear of loss of intimacy that a larger spiritual community might bring up for them. And so then they focused their prayer work on releasing these fears and attachments. And then Agape began to grow. The power of releasing and letting God run our lives instead of our ego saying, no, I just want to hang out with my friends. I don't want to meet those new people. It's really moving beyond what we think we want to something greater. Again, Jean Holden said that fear keeps us hanging on to what doesn't work in our lives, and it also keeps us from surrendering to our good. So we surrender all that does not serve us, like Agape surrendered their fear of loss of intimacy and their attachment to talking to their friends. And then Eugene Holden says, then we surrender to our greatest good. That's the next step, which means surrendering to the call of getting the spiritual teachings out to a broader audience. I know one of my attachments that I had to let go of was the attachment to things I'd heard from some colleagues, not to waste your time on social media, and of course, look what's happened because of COVID. We've really gotten into and we've invested in social media. And you know, it's I know that we're reaching far, far more people than we had previously with our message. So releasing and letting go of attachments and fears, whatever they might be, allows us to step into a greater expression of the divine nature that we are. Releasing in order to forgive. Releasing in order to forgive. You know, up until recently, I found myself getting overly caught up in the drama of politics. I did, I have to admit it. And I never had up to that point, but I got really involved, and it was actually ultimately a good thing. But the unfortunate part is that the ego part of myself was really wanting to hang on to a lot of anger and frustration and so on. And it was creating, I know, toxicity in my body. It was not healthy for me, and it was not healthy. It just was not healthy. And so I, you know, after listening deeply, what is it that I must let go of? I mean, I knew very clearly I needed to let go of the drama, and I needed to move into faith and trust, and allow things to unfold, and trust in the greater good, and trust in the idea that God is working through humanity in an ever evolving way, that there is this impulse for all of us to evolve. So I had to let go of that. And I also had to focus on the spiritual principle that no one and nothing can negatively influence me without my permission. That's a spiritual principle. Why? Because we are powerful co-creators with God. And so that principle is also means to me, and this was my action that went along with that, is to bless those that I had been judging, and to remember that that unkind behaviors are a call for love, just like any other kind of behavior is a call for love. And so my role is to bring love, to offer blessings, you know, silently in my mind every time I think of it, to help to transform consciousness. A refusal to forgive, you may have heard this before, is like drinking poison, hoping the other person will die. And all forgiveness then ultimately is self-forgiveness. It's self-care. It really is self-care. It's a releasing of toxic beliefs, their accompanying emotions that harm ourselves, because it causes the stress response, which is damaging to the cells long-term. So forgiveness then returns us to a state of love, peace, joy, and health. How cool is that? It's really the ultimate of self-care. So while it's not easy to give up things that we resent and forgive and regret, the repetition of the visioning process and living in the question, what is Spirit's highest idea of what I must release in order to forgive? That's another little permutation of it. Will give us insights and help to liberate us. One such insight for me at times is to practice the Ho'oponopono prayer of forgiveness throughout the day, to cleanse and clear my cells of toxicity, the toxicity of the negative thoughts and their effects. And it's very simple to remember. It's when a thought comes up that doesn't serve us, to say, I'm sorry, please, you know, we're saying to ourselves and to ourselves, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Those 4 things cleanses and clears the cells of toxicity of negative thought. A Course in Miracles lesson 122 says, forgiveness offers everything I want. Do you want peace? True forgiveness offers peace. Do you want happiness? A quiet mind, certainty of purpose, a sense of worth and beauty that transcends the world? Do you want care and safety and warmth of sure protection always? Listen to that. Care and safety and warmth of sure protection always. Do you want a quietness that cannot be disturbed, a gentleness that never can be hurt, a deep, abiding comfort and rest, so perfect that your rest can never be upset. All of these attributes forgiveness offers to you and more. And actually, the passage goes on from there on more things that forgiveness offers us. Forgiveness. What is forgiveness? It is release. It is releasing our stories about how awful, ain't it awful about the past? It's letting go of all that, and it's coming into the present moment where all is well. Releasing then ultimately makes room for the vision. It's that law of circulation. I release all of the toxicity, all of those beliefs, which makes room for the new to come in, the new ideas in the mind of God, the new possibilities. So it literally not only lifts us out of wrong tendencies, discord, and illness, it makes room for new insights. It makes room for our highest good. It's like opening the door to our highest good to come in. So I'd like us now to just take a moment and be still and listen. We're going to practice this, and then I'm going to invite you to do this throughout the week. Give yourself some time every day. And ask ourselves, let's just tune within, take a breath, drop in, drop into the heart. Just consciously drop below the conditioned mind and into the field of all possibility and all potentiality, where the very love of God resides and is ready and willing and open with all kinds of possibilities that are just perfect for you. Just breathe and relax deeply. Sit in the silence for a moment. And then just ponder this question. What is Spirit's highest idea of what I must release to make room for the highest vision of my life? What is Spirit's highest idea of what I must release to make room for Spirit's highest idea of my life? Listen reverently, listen deeply. Let's give thanks for this truth. And I'd like you just to consciously do what Marianne led you to in doing. And that means to just make a movement, just throw that thing that you were asked to release away back into the field of all possibility and potentiality. Will get transmuted into just fresh new energy. We're releasing it and letting it go. And then repeat after me our affirmation again. The more I release, the more
I release,
the more good I experience.
the more good I experience.
And so it is, my
So it
friends.
is.
Namaste. Have a beautiful day.